Inspired, an art exhibition celebrating cultural enlightenment and commemorating the centennial of the 19th Amendment, featuring the works of Victoria Guerina and Diane Schenandoah. Diane Schenandoah and Victoria Garina are exhibiting artwork together to celebrate the common connection between Haudenosaunee Indigenous women and the women of Seneca Falls, New York during the mid-1800s, the early days of the women's rights movement. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, and Matilda Jocelyn Gage understood that Western civil and religious traditions promoted a natural order that dictated women were inferior in character to men and therefore subordinate to them and less deserving of human and civil rights. Seeing the strength, capabilities, and authority of the Haudenosaunee women, they were convinced it was possible to reclaim these rights for their own lives and communities. It was this inspiration that encouraged Stanton, Mott, and three friends to hold a 2-day public conference in the summer of 1848 to discuss the rights of women that became the start of the women's rights movement in the United States. For the next 72 years, thousands of women took up the cause, campaigning for a national right to vote for women, which was finally achieved in 1920 with the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution. Those who continue to fight for equality to this day all owe a debt to the Haudenosaunee people and their model for living with equality. Victoria Guerina. Her photo is included. Photo credit, Betsy Ritt. I am a Rhode Island artist working in a realist style of sculpting and drawing. I am one of the sculptors of the first wave installation in the Visitor Center at the Women's Rights National Historical Park in Seneca Falls. To commemorate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, I've created a series of historical sculpture portraits and sketches of prominent women's rights activists who lived in the 19th and 20th centuries. My sculptures in this exhibit were created with clay using historic photographs and documents as reference and then cast in bronze, wax, or resin. The drawing of Matilda Jocelyn Gage is a composition referencing several photographs. Having recently learned of the Haudenosaunee influence on the women of Seneca Falls, and having met Diane Schenandoah at an event in Auburn, New York in January 2020, I asked her to join me in commemorating this historic cultural exchange by exhibiting our artwork together. Please visit my website at www.victoriagarina.com. Diane Schenandoah. A photo of a Native American woman is included. I am a citizen of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, Oneida Nation, Wolf Clan, and Faith Keeper. I have been sculpting for over 30 years. I have performed and exhibited my work from the White House to the Vatican. I work in several mediums, which includes clay, wood, bone, stone, shell, bronze, and some welding. I also design traditional items, cradle boards, rattles, and furniture with a traditional contemporary flair. Throughout my career, I began to realize how very blessed I am to be able to share my rich culture through my work. In 1988, I was asked to be a faith keeper of the Wolf Clan, a title that carries the honor of holding, sharing, and teaching our belief system. Today, I try to present my rich culture in a teachable way along with my passion for my people and my work. Artwork of Diane Schenandoah. Principles of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Our history tells us that the Haudenosaunee Confederacy was formed when the peacemaker brought a message to our then warring nations who were caught in vicious blood wars. His helpers were a woman named Chagonsese, who encouraged the violence of the wars and came to be the first to accept the peacemaker's message, while a man named Hiawatha, who lost himself to the grief over his slain daughters, also accepted the message of peace. The last to accept the message was the most evil and feared man among his people, Tadadaho. Through transforming his mind and spirit, through songs of love and the combing of snakes out of his hair, the peacemaker, Shagonsase, and Hiawatha are able to bring Tadadaho to a good mind. Tadadaho was then given the title of chief for the entire Haudenosaunee Confederacy, to be the caretaker for the entire Confederacy's people and affairs. His title and responsibility still exist to this day. The people buried their weapons of war under a great white pine called the Great Tree of Peace. The tree has 4 sacred white roots that extend out to all corners of the earth, and anyone who wishes to live in peace may seek shelter under the tree with the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. An eagle sits on top of the tree to call out in times of danger and to warn the people. The original 5 nations of the Haudenosaunee to unite under the great law of peace were the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca nations, and were later joined by the Tuscarora, who collectively became the 6 nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Our Confederacy still exists to this day under the same message of peace, leadership, and peace protocols. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy served as the example of democracy and governance, which influenced the formation of the United States Constitution and women's rights. Our great law of peace tells us that we are to love, care for, and forgive one another using the good mind. Here we learn to care for all of life and our Mother Earth. As Haudenosaunee, we are to share this message, and our prophecies tell us that all people will come to hear this message of peace. Haudenosaunee call for peace. This slide depicts an image of a sculpture. On the back of the antler is Chagonsase, our first clan mother. On the front is the hand of the peacemaker who is holding the Hiawatha wampum belt that symbolizes the unification and the original 5 nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and also represents the coming away of the snakes and dark thoughts that plagued Tadadaho. The 4 sacred white roots are represented in the sculpture where Jagonsase is, and the eagle can be seen in the lower front carrying the principles of peace on its wings. The sculpture is cast in bronze and measures 39 inches high by 28 inches wide by 17 inches wide. Its base is made from the heart of a very old black walnut tree that was located in Oneida. This tree is a native tree in the lands of the Haudenosaunee. Ancestors Whisper. This image is of a sculpted face with feathery hair mounted to a piece of driftwood. In walking through life, we hear whisperings. We know in our hearts our true direction, yet we doubt. Go to the woods, I have always been told. You will hear our ancestors. They watch over and guide us. Stop long enough to listen. Tennessee River Basin driftwood, Ohio base clay, duck feathers. 3 sisters. This image is 3 female heads protruding from the top of a shaped carved plinth. This piece represents the sustainers of life: corn, beans, and squash. These 3 plants are the perfect nutritional combination of what our bodies need. We say the corn stalk provides the pull to beans, and the squash leaves keep the weed down. The three combined are our sustainers given to us by the Creator. For these we give thanks. They continue their duties and provide sustenance for us. Made with New York clay. Sisters. This image depicts two female heads appearing above a blanket which they appeared to be sharing and swaddled in. This piece represents the closeness of women, whether by blood relation of a child, friendship, auntie, grandmother, or mother. As we journey throughout our lives, these bonds are formed, and we can lean on each other for support throughout our lives. It is this closeness that we can become one as a sisterhood in making changes within our families, communities, or nations. As women, this is the driving energy of life givers. We share this common bond. Even if we never have children of our own, we are the nurturer. New York clay on maple. Sky World, Sky Woman. This image depicts a sculpted face with feathery hair. Our origin is the stars. We began with Sky Woman. All of life flows from the sky to Mother Earth. Women are the seeds between sky and earth. We are held in the highest regard because life flows through us. Mother Earth nurtures all living beings, and all of life dances with the grace to love, heart to learn, generosity to share, nurtures to grow, and the sacred womb of life continues this magnificent circle. White ash, duck feathers, Ohio clay. Beholding beauty. This image depicts the back of a nude woman. This piece represents the feminine. In my culture, it is the woman who owns the land because all of life flows through them. Man moves to the woman's nation when a marriage takes place. The children of this union become the clan of the mother. We are keepers of the culture and are responsible for the political, social, and spiritual welfare of our people. We are a matrilineal society. Our descent is traced through the mother's lineage. We have the duty of choosing the chiefs and removing them from their duties should they not follow the direction of the clan mothers. As women, we hold an elevated status, and it is the duties of the male to uphold this provenance. New York clay. Dance of Divine Feminine. This image depicts driftwood that takes the shape of a female in motion. With the grace of a feather, she leads nations. She raises communities. She loves endlessly. She laughs. It's a song for all to hear. Yes, she is a divine being. Australian driftwood on grapeseed wood base. Two-row wampum treaty belt. This image depicts an antler mounted on a wood base, dripped in a small beaded belt. This is first agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Europeans who were coming into our lands, known as the Two-Row Treaty. This is an agreement made in that we were equals as long as grass is green and the water flows downhill. This is made of white and purple beads. The white beads denote that one purple row of beads represents a sailboat. And then the sailboat are the Europeans and their government and religion. The other full row of beads represents a canoe. In canoe are the Indigenous peoples, our leader, government, and our way of life. We traveled down the road of life, parallel to each other, and never merging with each other. The first row of white beads is peace. The second row is friendship, and the third row is forever. We shall pass laws telling you what to do. You shall not pass laws telling our people what to do. The Haudenosaunee violated this tree. Deer antler speeds cherry wood. Journey home. This image depicts a bone carved into the shape of a face at one end, and at the other end mounted to a slice of wood as a base. At the bottom of a base is part of a sculpted hand. As we travel throughout our paths in life, we are given a certain number of days here on our Mother Earth to learn to love and to care for one another. When we ascend to Creator's land, we walk the Milky Way, where our ancestors are waiting to greet us with open arms. This is our purpose here on Earth, to ultimately have this honor among our loved ones. Buffalo leg bone, moose antler on butternut. Now the artwork of Victoria Garina. Elizabeth K. Stanton, 1815 to 1902. Two images depict sculpture, forward-facing and in profile, of a woman's head. Elizabeth K. Stanton was born in Johnstown, New York, the daughter of a prominent lawyer. Growing up, she was able to learn something about laws that governed women, and also that women had no say in making those laws. While living in Seneca Falls, New York, she was inspired by the lives of the local Haudenosaunee women who had authority and respect in their communities. It was clear that the subordinate role of women was not the natural order as she had been taught. She co-authored the Declaration of Sentiments, modeled after the Declaration of Independence, stating, "All men and women are created equal," and outlined the historical injustices brought upon women by men. Stanton worked tirelessly for women's rights for over 50 years, a writer, speaker, and activist, but, like many who campaigned for women's suffrage, was never able to legally cast a vote. Sketch of Elizabeth Cady Stanton, bronze, 18 by 8 by 9 inches. Lucretia Coffin Mott, 1793 to 1880. Two images depict a sculpted bust, both in front and profile view. Lucretia Mott was born on Nantucket Island to a Quaker family. She met Elizabeth Cady Stanton in London at the 1840 World Anti-Slavery Convention, where the two were required to sit in the balcony, unable to participate because they were women. She and Stanton were the principal organizers of the 1848 convention in Seneca Falls. Mott was a prominent and elegant writer and speaker dedicated to abolition of slavery and women's rights. She and her husband visited the Haudenosaunee prior to the convention in 1848. Bust of Lucretia Mott, bronze, 23 by 18 by 9 inches. Hilda Jocelyn Page, 1826 to 1898. The image depicts the profile of a woman wearing a high-neck sweater. Matilda Jocelyn Page was born in Cicero, New York, and was a contemporary of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susie Anthony. Although less well known today, she was a radical and vocal advocate of women's rights and an active abolitionist. She spoke at many women's rights conventions, was president and held office in several women's suffrage organizations, published and edited a newspaper, and wrote extensively. Her home in Fayetteville, New York, was a refuge on the Underground Railroad. Page was an active supporter of Indigenous people, believed that the United States government had treated them unjustly. Native women's political and social equality with men in the Haudenosaunee Confederacy convinced her and her contemporaries that women's subordination was neither natural nor ordained by God. She was honorarily adopted into the Wolf Clan, the Mohawk Nation. Matilda Joss Wage, Gioconda pencil on paper, 17 by 14 inches. Sir Truth, 1797 to 1883. Images depict front and profile view of a full-body sculpture of a woman. A slave, Sir Truth became a prominent and fiery speaker and activist, often speaking at conventions extemporaneously. Her most famous Iowa speech was delivered at the Ohio 1851 Women's Convention. Quote, "The man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over bridges, and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages over mud puddles or gives me any best place. Ain't I a woman? Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered barns, and no man could help me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man. I could get at it, and bear the lad as well. And ain't I a woman? I've borne 13 children and seen most all sold to slavery, and when I cried out my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. Ain't I a woman?" Sojourner, wax, 14 by 5 by 6 inches. Susan Brownell Anthony, 1820 to 1906. Images depict front-facing view and profile sculpture of a woman's head. Susie Anthony did not attend the 1848 convention in Seneca Falls and was amused by it first. However, when she attempted to step and speak at a New York temperance convention, she rebuked and told the ladies having been invited to listen, to learn, and not speak. She immediately formed a female temperance society. She became one of the most visible leaders in the women's suffrage movement. Working together with Stanton for over 50 years, she delivered speeches, created organizations, lobbied Congress, and edited newspapers. She was arrested for illegal voting in Rochester, New York in 1872. For this, she was fined $100, but refused to pay. She was not able to legally vote in her lifetime, but never lost hope. Her words, "Failure is impossible," are often been quoted. She, Stanton, engaged together, wrote The History of Women's Suffrage. Sketches of Susan Anthony, bronze, 18 by 10 inches. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony. The image depicts two sculptures, full bodies of women standing side by side, each appearing to hold a book, as if in conversation. In the spring of 1851, Anthony attended an anti-slavery meeting in Seneca Falls, where she met Stanton and immediately began a lifelong friendship. Anthony was described as the Napoleon of the suffrage movement. She was the organizational and tactical genius. She appeared before every Congress between 1869 and 1906 on behalf of women's suffrage. Stanton's role was that of thinker and writer. She worked unremittingly for the women's rights movement. At the same time, she managed a household of 7 children. Anthony often stayed at Stanton's home and helped take care of the children while Stanton wrote speeches that Anthony would present at conferences and meetings across the country. Stanton and Anthony, wax, 15 by 14 by 6 inches. Alice Stokes Paul, 1885 to 1977. 2 images depict the front and profile view of the sculpture of a woman's head. Alice Paul was born in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, and grew up in a Quaker home where she was introduced to gender equality and activism by her parents. After studying in Europe and joining the suffragettes in London, she returned to the United States with new and more direct methods of protest. Paul, with Lucy Burns, organized parades to bring public attention to the cause, the largest in Washington, D.C. in 1913. She organized the Silent Sentinels, women picketing in front of the White House for an entire year, and she was arrested multiple times. These efforts were a turning point in securing the passage of the 19th Amendment. Paul also wrote the Equal Rights Amendment, which she publicly announced in Seneca Falls, New York in 1923. Alice Paul, bronze, 18 by 8 by 10 inches. Mary E. Jackson, 1867 to 1923. Two images depict a front-facing and profile view of the sculpture of the head of an African American woman. Mary E. Jackson was born in Providence, Rhode Island, and was a leader in the women's suffrage movement through the NAACP and the Northeast Federation of Colored Women's Clubs. Actively discouraged from participating in the national suffrage associations led by middle-class white women, Black women across the country organized local clubs from which to campaign for women's suffrage. Jackson organized meetings and wrote for The Crisis, the magazine of the NAACP. Thousands of women, whose names we'll never know, struggled and sacrificed to advance the cause of women's rights. Jackson is among those who deserve to be recognized for her work and achievements. Champion of women's suffrage, Mary E. Jackson, resin, 23 by 10 by 12 inches. We hope you have enjoyed this exhibition. We also hope that you will be inspired to learn more about our history and to be active voters in your communities. Art is a way to express our beliefs and better understand our culture. It also helps us see aspects of our lives from other points of view. It expands our horizons, allows us to see and understand new ideas, and helps us to connect with people around the world. This exhibition was to be hosted at the Women's Rights National Historical Park in Seneca Falls, New York in the summer of 2020. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, we had to change our plans. We present it in November 2020, National American Indian Heritage Month, as a virtual exhibit. Special thank you to Stephanie Fries, 19th Amendment Centennial Coordinator and Program Specialist, Women's Rights National Historical Park, Seneca Falls, New York. Betsy Ritz, Artist, Historian, Rhode Island. Photo credits from the first slide: Seneca Bark Longhouse, Betsy Ritz, Elizabeth Cady Stanton's home in Seneca Falls, National Park Service. All audio captions provided by Women's Rights National Historical Park in Seneca Falls, New York. If you would like access to the list of websites used in creating this exhibit, please contact Women's Rights National Historical Park. Thank you.